Welcome back to the Unstuck movement. I am your host, Rob Z. This platform was created to help you break the chains that are holding you back in your life, personally and professionally. Today, we have the incredible, the powerful Andrew O'Brien with us on the podcast. And Andrew, I'd love to dive in right off the bat with a powerful question to get us rolling. Stress management, right? We all have dealt with stress in our life. People want to manage it better, especially in the seasons we live in now in life. What is the biggest misconception that you see about stress management?
Biggest misconception based on my experience. And first of all, thank you for having me here, Rob. It's awesome to be here and shedding light on this really important topic. And the biggest misconception is that you can't get rid of it. We can't get rid of our stress. What we can get rid of is burnout. And there's a big difference there. When I say stress versus burnout, what is stress? We are human, and so as humans, we have these stress response systems. They're a part of us. They're part of our physical bodies, and we are designed to experience stress. We're designed to experience this like flow in and out of a stress state, and then back to that homeostasis state. That's how we were designed, and that stress response system is there to protect us. It's there to serve us. It's there to, it's kind of like a survival thing. So if we are in like confronting real danger, that stress response system, that's going to tell us what to do in milliseconds. Do we fight, flight, freeze, any response that your systems tell you to do, you're going to do. And that's why we want these systems. They're there, and we can't get rid of stress. There's nothing to fear about stress. That said, if we're not managing that stress, and the word that I actually prefer to use is mastering that stress, because what we need to be doing is mastering these stress response systems. At the end of the day, we're walking nervous systems. And if we're not mastering that will totally lead us to burnout. And that's when we kind of experience the negative health outcomes, those physical stress symptoms, the emotional stress symptoms, the behavioral stress symptoms that can also build on to more negative health outcomes. And so that I would say is the biggest misconception. Stress in and of itself is not a bad thing. It actually could be positive for us. What we need to be doing is mastering that stress.
Yeah, great point, man. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of the times we want to like get rid of, I don't want to be angry anymore. I'm sick of being angry, right? People want to get rid of their anger. They want to get rid of their stress. And these things are like signals, like they're built into us for a reason. But for us to live in them all the time is a major problem, and also not know how to deal with them. Like this is a signal telling us that something needs to happen. And this podcast is called the Unstuck movement, right? It's about like taking action, getting unstuck. So if you find yourself stuck in these stressful places in your life, feeling this all the time, we've got to find a way to get ourselves out of that through action, which is why I brought you here today. So as we dive more into this, I just want to welcome everybody here. This platform was created because I love having real examples of people who have found incredible breakthrough in their life and have made that mess their message to help other people with. We're sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. The CLA is over 400 heart-centered entrepreneurs from all over the world who serve each other and help each other grow. Also, if you're ready to become the go-to authority in your field, the expert at what you do, you want to make a lasting impact on people's lives and also bring incredible connections and relationships into your life, I encourage you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy and join the waitlist at robzwentz.com. Today, Andrew O'Brien is in the house, the founder of the Mindblowing Coach. He helps people overcome chronic stress and burnout to achieve their full potential. With 25 years of experience, he's a professional certified coach with an MBA in HR management. Andrew, as we're talking about stress, you mentioned mastering these stress responses. What does it look like to master these stress responses in your life?
What does it look like? That is a good question. And a 50,000 foot view to that question is understanding the science. A lot of this stuff I was never taught growing up. It wasn't in my education system. So it's really understanding what the science is, applying that science in some way, shape, or form into our lives. And that is the name of the game. And it's a constant kind of focus on it. because we're constantly evolving and we're constantly changing. And so it's really staying in tune with the science. And then how do we keep optimizing that science into our life? That's where it becomes individualized and personalized. The science applies to us all with these stress response systems. But then how we apply this science into our life is going to be different from person to person.
How has this happened for you? So take me on your journey of why is this what you do? What were you experiencing in your life? I imagine you've experienced burnout at some point, as we all have. What led you to what you're doing today?
Yeah, and when you when you were just talking a bit ago, you used the word mess, and I was like, yeah, that was me for actually I had many bouts of burnout over my life, and the last bout of burnout, I just came to this awareness, realization, whatever you want to call it, that I remember telling myself, life can't be this.
Mm.
And across my life, I experienced so many physical and emotional stress symptoms. I was generally when we are burned out and we're stressed and we're trying to cope with that, and we don't know how to cope with that in healthy ways, we go to kind of like unhealthy choices. And so I was experiencing a lot of that as well. And yeah, so I had multiple bouts of burnout across my life, and it all stemmed from, I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I do believe that it all stemmed from me growing up in a town, in a state, in a country that my brain told me was not safe to be myself in.
Mm.
And what I mean more specifically about that is coming to terms with the fact that as a kid that I'm a gay man, and I, like, around me in it just wasn't a thing that was like an out talked about thing in my town. And then when I looked at the media and I came across different news stories with other gay kids around the country being like attacked, sometimes even killed, my brain told me that stress response system, right? It told me in that moment, I need to survive. So how am I going to survive is to kind of suppress that part of me. And how I suppress that part of me is like, how am I going to fit in? How am I going to fit into this town? And the only way that I thought was like the safest, we basically had two ways to fit into my town. One, like, become an athlete, one of the jocks. I was not athletic back then. Or number two, do well academically. And that's the path that I chose. And the more that I studied, the more that I got those A's and did well on all those exams, and all those accolades came, the high honor rolls, like time and time again, the 4.0 GPAs, well, not 4.0 all the time, but I became like that type A, like I literally, pun intended, type A personality. Like I crave those A's because that to me was like, yes, I'm fitting in, I'm getting these accolades, and I'm safe that way. And that translated over the course of my college years, the professional years beyond that. And, it's just, am I getting into the best school possible? Am I continuing to get those straight A's? Am I getting into a great company to work for? All of these things. And that self-pressure, no one was pressuring me to do that. I will add, that was all coming from me. And that self-pressure led to those first rounds of burnout, and just completely not sustainable. So that I hope that answered the question there as to a little about the mess that I've experienced over my life.
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because you said like nobody pressured you to do that. It felt like you had to do that to feel okay, and like you were type A personality. You had to get the A's to achieve, and that's not sustainable, right? It just doesn't last, and that leads to you experiencing these levels of burnout. And it's interesting that we can run. I talk about this all the time on the podcast. We can run on that hamster wheel forever, and some people live on that hamster wheel. They never get off of it, and they wonder why they feel so empty, even though they're achieving so much, right? And they're just built on achieving, but there's still like this, there's something not quite right here. What was the breaking point for you that led to, I mean, breaking points are always a million little things building up to something, right? But was there a moment of like, screw it, I can't do this anymore, I can't, this burnout's killing me, like maybe literally and figuratively? What did you finally decide to change and started to shift everything?
Yeah. The last time I experienced it, I just remember feeling like extremely down. I don't want to use the word depressed because I know that there's like a diagnosis out there. I was never diagnosed with depression, but I was absolutely feeling very down. I did work with a therapist to support me through that period of time. And on top of that, so that was like an emotional stress symptom I was experiencing. And then on top of that, from a physical perspective, a couple things happened in that last round of burnout that I experienced. One of them, have you ever experienced like that eyelid twitch?
Yeah. When you have it for a couple of days and you're like, what the heck is going on here? Yeah.
Yeah. So times that by a year straight.
Wow. Okay.
Literally a year straight of an incessant eyelid twitch. It was the most, not painful, but the most like frustrating and annoying thing that I ever experienced from a physical perspective. And then another thing that I experienced had to do, interesting, it all centers around the eyes. I was losing vision in my right eye. And that freaked me out. Again, not painful, but it freaked me out. And I got that checked out by the eye doctor. And the diagnosis that I got was called central serous retinopathy. And it's basically when the optic nerve bunches up because there's like fluid building under it, and that blocks your vision. And I was just like, why did I get this? And he's just like, well, are you type A? And he's just like, do you feel like stressed right now? I was like, 3000%. He's like, that's generally what happens. It generally happens in males. And if you're that kind of person, you can kind of experience that. So once I started to manage all of this optimally for me, that all went away. Unfortunately, there was some like residue of like the vision loss that stayed because you can't really control that part of it, but it's minor. But yeah, that culmination of stuff, that's when I was just like, life can't be this way. Like, I want to experience different. I want to experience more joy. I want to experience more fulfillment. I want to experience not this. And that's what really catapulted me to where I am right now in what I'm doing.
So what did you start to change? What did you like? So these sorts of, and when we all experience stress, we all experience the physical manifestations of stress in our life. If we're going through something, the eye twitch is an obvious one. It shows up in so many different ways. For me, it'll show up as like stress and pain in my back. I know if I'm stressed, my back really starts to hurt. And a lot of people they just kind of like push through it and ignore it or whatever, or they might do things to mitigate it, temporarily, but they don't do anything to actually fix it and permanently change it. What did you start to do to make permanent change?
Yeah. I will also say, I'm going to just throw in there too, like some of these symptoms can be totally invisible. And one of the examples that I experienced as well is like a skyrocketing cholesterol level. In particular, that LDL cholesterol, if left like unmanaged and heightened, can lead to all sorts of negative health outcomes, including heart disease. And so I say this, it just came to my mind because a few years back, I got that checked. Now I've been getting it checked like twice a year because I'm just like, I'm a data geek and I love to kind of keep checking my numbers. But 3 years ago, like my LDL, the recommended range is under 100. My LDL was at 169 at its peak.
Oh, wow.
And that was also like an eye opener for me. And I I did the research. I connected with a registered dietitian, and that person was all like, well, it doesn't seem to be like you got to change a lot with your nutrition, but like how are you with your stress levels and stuff? And I was like, well, I think they're out of control. Like, what do I do? And so I built a plan for myself to bring that down, and it's totally like where I wanted to be at this point, which is a beautiful thing. But I just wanted to make that point that sometimes these symptoms are invisible. And so I encourage folks to kind of get these biometrics checked, because that could be telling us a story too. It may not be like, you may not be feeling it physically. You may not even feel down, but these numbers, these biometrics can be telling us something. And I think that's important to raise here as well.
Absolutely.
So what did I do? So many things. One was like over the course of my life, I came across like different pieces of this science puzzle. And maybe like 1 year it would be like, well, you might have to consider doing this. And then 3 years down the road, you might want to consider doing this. And I was just like, this is frustrating, people. Like, why isn't there just like one space where you can grab all of the relevant science to address one thing? And so over the course of the years, I kind of grabbed these different pieces of science and I put it all together. And once I put it all together, it was again like another aha moment for me. I was like, oh, wow, this is like very comprehensive. What can I now start doing in my life to optimize my own situation and to master this stress of mine? And so I've summarized that there's basically like 10 domains of science that are relevant to this space. And these 10 domains, like I said before, they're applicable to us all, but then how we apply them into our lives, it's going to be individual. It's going to be personalized, because we all have different preferences on things in different life situations and schedules and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah, man, absolutely. There's not a one fit for all, but I feel the same way about breakthrough. So I'm excited to get into this with you, because I feel the same way about breakthrough. Breakthrough in your life, you could have a bunch of different areas where you're stuck in, personally and professionally, emotionally, physically, whatever. But if you follow a certain formula, that's what I try to do also, is like, there's something that you can do that you can apply it to everything and you'll find that breakthrough. So you found this for yourself too. So we're going to take a quick break, right? When we come back, I want to dive into this. You call it the O'Brien 10, right? The stress relief strategy.
Yes, I do.
I want to know about this. What are these 10 things that you found that were extremely beneficial, and how do we apply that? So we'll talk about that after this. Are you struggling to make consistent, valuable content for yourself? Do you want to have an efficient and effective way to create content that attracts the people that you want to connect with in life, the people you want to build relationships with in business? Do you want to be the go-to authority at what you do, at what you're great at? Would it be helpful for you if you had a platform that connects you to incredible people in your industry? The kind of platform that gets you leads and lands you clients without you having to beat down anybody's door or blow up anybody's inbox. Whether you're already creating content or you're desiring to start and it's something that's been kind of burning inside of you for a while, I urge you and encourage you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy. Get started right now. Join the waitlist at robzwentz.com.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world globally. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, join the Connected Leaders Academy today. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
So, Andrew, talking about this O'Brien 10, what did you come up with that was really beneficial? These 10 things that you found really make a difference in controlling burnout and stress in our life.
Yeah. So I kind of say like half of them, like 5 of them are like getting back to the basics. So a lot of this stuff hopefully will be just like reminders and refreshers for folks. And then the other half I find are kind of like the more of the hidden gems of like, oh, wow, I never quite thought about it like that. And I didn't know that there was like science around this even. So I can highlight like the getting back to basics first and then get into the second 5. The first one, and I'll also just say there's no order to this. The priority is all of them. The priority is optimizing all of the 10. It's not like one is better than the other. And it's really, you got to see where you might have an area of opportunity. That's also going to be different from person to person. But yeah, the first category is all about oxygen, breathing, our brains. It's all, again, optimizing these nervous systems of ours, and that, the brains take charge in that. So when we optimize that brain health in particular, we're going to be setting ourselves up for success in this regard. And so these brains of ours, they use approximately 20% of our total body's oxygen supply, and even mild deprivation can lead to this ultimate burnout. And I guarantee you, I'm throwing myself in that ring. It's something that I continue to work at, this category, because I guarantee you most of us are shallow breathing throughout the day. And what I mean by shallow breathing is basically breathing to here. And the importance of bringing these inhales down to the bottoms of those bellies each time, super important. That's how these brains of ours are getting the full oxygen that it's craving. Throughout this entire podcast, I think that was the first deep breath I took. So yeah, I'm working on this as well. It's definitely a focal point for me.
Isn't it interesting with breathing too? Like, I love anytime anybody brings up breathing, then I start noticing that I'm not breathing deeply enough, and I'm not breathing from my belly. And when somebody brings it up, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm breathing wrong. It's like a constant thing.
Exactly. And just take a look at if you have pets, right? If you have pets at home, I have a cat, and I observe her so much because like the majority of her day, she's deep belly breathing. It's when she gets scared of something. That's when like the breathing gets fast. But then that passes and it goes back to the deep breathing. Most of the day, my cat is like doing what I want to be doing. And so she is my—
You mean just laying around? Just laying around in the sun? Is that what you mean? Just hanging out?
100%. Yeah. So breathing is getting back to the basics. Another category like this is hydration, water, our water intake. I invite you to think about what your water and we're talking straight up water. That's not mixed with anything. How much of that are you drinking in a day? There is no current guidance from the CDC on how much we should be drinking in each day, actually. And the reason why that is because, like, again, we're all different. We're different shapes and sizes. We are living in different parts of the country that have different climates. We are sweating more than others. And so they don't have a standard guidance. However, I did consult with a couple of registered dietitians who did not know each other. What they recommend and advise their patients is that maintaining a pale yellow urine color is a really great sign that we're well hydrated from water. And again, these brains, they're approximately 80% water, and even that mild deprivation can be negatively harmful for us on this burnout train. The third one, all of these are really big, but nutrition, optimizing that nutrition. And I'm not going to tell you what the right diet is because there is no one right diet. We are all different, and even registered dietitians, there's not a common agreement on what's right from one person to the next. And it seems like every 2 weeks there's a new fad that's coming out with, oh my God, this is what you need to be eating. So I'm not going to be going there. What I am going to be sharing, though, a couple things. One, I love this. Did you know? Did you know? Because I always get blown away by this fact. Approximately 90% of our serotonin production occurs in the gut. Serotonin, for those who don't know, is one of our feel-good hormones. If we're not fueling our gut with these nutritious foods, that serotonin does not have an opportunity to do what it wants to do, which is feel good. And that gut and our brains are very, very connected by what's known as the vagus nerve, constantly talking to each other. And so if the gut is down, the brain's going to be down. And so that is a really, really big piece of information to know. I will share, just from the CDC perspective, the types of foods that we do want to optimize and limit / avoid from what we do want to consume. We want to stick with the vegetables, the fruits, the whole grains, the lean proteins, the healthy fats, those omega-3s. Really, our brain loves those. We want to stay away from or limit the added sugars and the added salts and the processed foods, which is so much of our food supply, and that's a whole other conversation that irks me. Like why we're not doing things to kind of make this food supply system like healthier for us is just totally, it makes my skin boil. It actually does. But I'm not going to go there today. But this nutrition piece is really, really important. Number 4, another getting back to basics is physical activity. Physical activity, when we move, we're increasing that oxygen, that blood flow to the brains, the beautiful thing for the brain. And a side note, we're also optimizing our learning and memory when we move. And movement is movement. Movement doesn't have to be something that you hate, folks. Anything, there's so many different categories of movement, and I invite you to think of what you would like to do as movement. Like literally anything is movement. House cleaning can be considered movement. Gardening, all sorts of different things. Movement is movement is movement. From the CDC perspective, what we want to be achieving for ourselves across the week, at least 150 minutes of more of the moderate cardio, like getting the heart going, at least 150 minutes across the week. If it's moderate, if it's vigorous, at least 75 minutes across the week, in addition to a couple of days of more of like the muscle resistance training work. And there's so many different types of movement. I can't stress that enough. There's so many different types of movement out there that can get at all of this stuff. So I encourage you to think about that. If this is an area of struggle for you, think through that. And then the 5th domain that's kind of like getting back to basics is sleep, optimizing that sleep. And this is another really powerful area. When we're optimizing the sleep, we're setting ourselves up for awesome stuff here. And I say that because during the deep parts of our sleep, we are actually the glymphatic system. The glymphatic system is basically our brain's waste management system. It primarily activates during the deep parts of our sleep cycle. And what does that mean? So the dead neurotransmitters that accumulate in our brains throughout the course of the day, during those deep parts of our sleep, that glymphatic system's active, and it's flushing all of that out of our brains into our systems, out of our systems. And so if we are not allowing our brains to experience that, it's no wonder why we wake up groggy, lethargic, low energy, wanting to hit the snooze button 30,000 times, and just not wanting to get the day started, because physiologically, it's literally like the brain is foggy. And over time, with that buildup, 100% burnout train. And so some recommendations here, again, this is from the CDC. And I should also say, we should all be getting at least 7 hours of regular, consistent quality sleep. You might need more than that. And I invite you to, always check in. You can always check in with a sleep specialist to see what your number is and strive for that. But at least 7 hours is coming from the CDC. And some recommendations to optimize that sleep hygiene is the sleep environment cool, quiet, dark. A note about the cool, I actually run cold. And so the word cool sets me off a little bit. The point is that you don't want to wake up either like in a deep sweat or like freezing in the middle of the night. You want to be comfortable. So whatever that means for you, optimize it in that way. We want to be staying away from like things like this, the screens, the screen time, the iPads, the smartphones, whatever you want to call them, that blue light technology, even with the technologies that limit that, because there are some on the market right now that limit the blue light technology. Even with that our brain is being stimulated, and that's telling our brain to stay awake and stay active. And so I invite you to think about how you might tweak that usage as you're going to sleep. Also, we want to be avoiding those vigorous workouts right before we go to sleep, and also like eating heavy meals right before we go to sleep. Lastly, on that note, I always say, don't ignore that snore. If you know that you snore, get it checked out. It could be a quick fix, and it could make a huge difference and impact with the sleep that you're getting.
Yeah. And the people that you're sleeping with, right? Your whoever's there in bed with you, man, snoring can really ruin relationships. And yeah, snoring's interesting because we just act like it's some normal, natural thing, but really it needs to be checked out. And so I've done a lot of work on this for myself, which is kind of hilarious. My wife was cracking up at these sorts of things, but for years I slept with tape over my mouth, so I
Wow.
breathed through my nose so that I'd stop snoring, and also wore like a nose strip, like across the bridge of my nose, just so I would breathe through my nose more and less
Yep.
through my mouth, because there's so many health benefits of breathing through your nose. And breathing through your mouth, whether you're awake or asleep, is not good for you. And so it's just
Yeah.
it's something we ignore a lot that just should be focused on.
Yeah. Totally. And then some of the ones on that might be a little bit more new to the audience here. Rest. Rest is another category, and we just finished talking about sleep. Rest is totally different from sleep. And what we mean by rest is literally giving your brain a rest throughout the course of the day. And unlike muscles in our body that signal to the brain in real time when they are tired, the brain doesn't do that for itself, because the brain is the brain. It's an organ. And so we generally know and find out when we are just totally exhausted and totally fatigued. And based on the latest science, we now know that the brains, they start to fatigue after about 90 minutes of focused activity. They could be sooner than the 90 minutes. It could be later than the 90 minutes. It really depends on the intensity of whatever it is that you're focusing on. And so what the recommendation here is how might you be able to sprinkle in micro breaks throughout the day. We're not talking hours, like unless you have that kind of bandwidth. As realistic as possible throughout the day, how might you be able to sprinkle in these micro pauses, micro breaks, where you're ideally thinking about something uplifting. And that could be listening to a song that you love, or looking at a picture of someone who you love, or giving someone a quick call. Do people call each other anymore these days? I have no idea. But yeah, it's just like something uplifting is ideally you want to be like taking your brain away from whatever activity that you're doing. And the research also shows that when we do that consistently, we're actually more productive and efficient with the tasks at hand. So that's a really important piece to know. Gratitude. Gratitude is a huge one, folks, and that is thankfulness, appreciation. So much science behind this category, and we're actually reshaping brain parts when we're practicing gratitude consistently, regularly. And again, we're not talking hours out of the day. Unless you want to do it, go for it. But it really only takes 5 minutes a day even to start seeing a difference in this regard. And what regard does this mean? Like, what is the science? So that the amygdala, we didn't specifically use this term before, but the fear response center in the brain is controlled by that amygdala. The amygdala, actually, when we are in the chronic stress and burnout phases, it actually expands in size. There's two other brain parts, prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, that are connected more to the positive emotion side of the house, executive function, rationale, logic. Those two parts shrink in size when we are burned out or chronically stressed. What this gratitude does is the complete opposite of that. It works to bring back that amygdala back to its normal size and re-expand those two other brain parts. The MRIs are like crazy to see. It's so powerful, this stuff. And so if you're asking yourself, how do I even get started with this? There's so many different ways to get started with this. There's so many different things we could be grateful for, whether it's other people in our lives, the animals in our lives, the material things in our lives. Maybe it's the bed that you get to sleep in, the running water that you have access to, or the refrigerator that you have that keeps your produce fresh. Those material things really important to include if that resonates with you. Also your unique gift that you have to this world. You can be grateful for that. That is an okay thing to be grateful for, like your skills, your strengths, your personality. And those are just some ideas on things that you might be grateful, you might want to start incorporating into your gratitude practice. And if you want something more guided, there's a ton of free apps out there that can help you along that way. My favorite happens to be Insight Timer. There's like a ton of different meditations. You could search by duration. You can search by male voice, female voice. You could search by topic. So you could search for gratitude and get something going in that way. And it's totally free. You can upgrade too if you wanted to do that. But like, I've never upgraded because there's just so much content on the free version of Insight Timer. So that's all about gratitude. The another category here that can be a very scary one for folks is the emotional expression piece. And this is a biggie. This is a biggie because when we suppress our emotions, when we don't honor them and release them, we are actually holding on to them. And when we hold on to them, there's a whole body of science here called the mind-body syndrome that will actually lead to us experiencing physical stress symptoms, the emotional stress symptoms. Can be very dangerous for us. And again, we're not taught how to do this stuff, or at least I wasn't taught how to do this stuff growing up. And so the goal that I always say in this category is to kind of work to create an emotional highway without traffic, because we are human and we are emotional beings, and we're always going to be experiencing these emotions. We can never be moodless, and there's always going to be something that triggers us in some way. Could be a positive trigger too, but there's always going to be something that triggers us. And so the idea is to acknowledge what's happening emotionally, and then in as real time as possible, let it go in a healthy way. And I say the word healthy because, again, generally we are going to the quick fixes that feel good in the moment. And those quick fixes are generally not healthy for us long term. And so healthy way release, and there's so many ways that we can do that. I'll throw out a few recommendations here. Write it out. Some people call that journaling. Talk it out. You don't even have to talk to somebody real. You could talk to the wall. I have some clients who go into nature and talk to trees. I have a client who talks to the sun. Just whatever. How some people write music. Some people write poems. Some people dance. Some people do painting. There's so many different ways that we can express ourselves and those emotions to kind of get them out of our systems, because there's always going to be something new that we're experiencing from an emotional perspective. And then if you are really struggling in this category, I will always recommend reach out for professional support, whether that is a coach or a therapist. We can support you in that regard.
And just to say something about that, it's really it's important to be bold in our conversations too. There's a lot that goes unsaid in our life that we don't talk about it, or we don't say anything about it because we don't want to maybe face the uncomfortableness of a conversation, or we don't want to make somebody upset from a conversation, or we don't want to get upset from a conversation. And so one of the things I really encourage people to do is to be bold in your communication. Not like a bull in a china shop. You don't want to, it's not like you're trying to hurt people or offend people, but some things, elephants in the room, need to be said. And you feel such immense weight lifted off of you when a thing finally gets said, when you finally speak about a thing. And that should be in a conversational kind of form. It should be in a way that allows for conversation to happen, but that you get it out. And like you said, talking to a therapist, writing it down, journaling, those sorts of things are helpful. But sometimes we need to talk about something with somebody. And these things can build up over a lifetime, right? You can have something you need to say to somebody, and for decades, you don't say it. And it can create, it can be, and you can go to your therapist and talk about it. You could do a bunch of different things, but sometimes the only way through this thing is to actually talk about it. and if you do it in the right way, man, you have no idea the breakthroughs you can have in relationships with yourself and with other people. So I really encourage that portion of it also, because I've been somebody in my life who's avoided hard conversations, and the more I have the hard conversations, boy, the better I feel. And honestly, the better the relationships get that I have, which is interesting because you think sometimes it's going to tear a relationship apart, but a great conversation can bring people together in a brand new way. Unfortunately, Andrew, we have to wrap this one up. This has been great information, and I want to encourage people also that we didn't make it through the 10. I want people to get the 10 ways to live without burnout and have them experience this for themselves. So they can go to your website, which is the mindblowingcoach.com/stress relief tips. Make sure you go there, get those 10 ways to live without burnout, because this is so important. We can't walk through life ignoring these sorts of things and letting these things build up, right? We want to, number one, be healthy, but you want to live a fulfilled life where you feel like you're really being who you know you're supposed to be. This is where our integrity comes from, and we all need to have a high level of integrity for our lives. So I love that, man. I love that you're doing this. I want to encourage everybody also, if you want to be the authority in your space and you want to launch your platform, check me out at robzwentz.com. Andrew, thank you for your time. Anything you want to share with the audience before we sign off?
No, I just want to say, remember as you go forth, if this is a challenge for you, mastering this stress, if this is challenging for you, just remember that self-compassion, be kind to yourself. This is all biological, and we can control this biology, but it's easy to get away from us. So remember that kindness for yourself as you march ahead, and you got it.
I love it. And thank you for doing the work that you do. Thank you for this breakthrough that you've had, that you can share your testimony with us today, because this platform is all about true testimonies of breakthrough. Until next time, this has been the Unstuck Movement.